So welcome all. Good morning, good day, good afternoon, good evening, because you're all joining from different parts of the world. We thank you for spending your time this morning with us and learn something. And I'm just going to give a brief discussion or description about what Town is. Just I'm not going to take too much of time. I know you're all waiting to hear Denise. So just give me a second to share a couple of minutes about Coco. Town has been in business for a long time, and our parent company, Concepts, was founded in 1992. We started trading innovative specialty food processing machines and focused on machines for the South Indian market. And then, when the recession hit, we wanted to make an impact socially and also help people around the world. So we had from the beginning, our focus was in three areas. It has to be, whatever we do, it has to be environmentally sustainable, and it has to help our customers' business, and also it has to help the cocoa farmers. Because we have a saying in our language, if the farmer doesn't put his foot in the mud, you cannot put your hand in your food. But unfortunately, all over the world, if you look at it, the farmers are the least compensated in the value chain, even though they toil in the sun and rain all the time. So that's why that's our mission and passion to empower, even cocoa farmers to climb the economic ladder. So we looked at the different things when the recession came, and we decided to, make the machines to make chocolate in small batches. So these machines help entrepreneurs regardless where they are located. And also we wanted in this way, we wanted to highlight cocoa as a superfood. And then cocoa farmers can make chocolate instead of selling cocoa beans as in the commodity price. And then this is our brief timeline. We have a lot of machines, and all our machines have some of them we have the patent already received. Some of them are patent pending. We do only unique things. And also in 2020, we had to pivot because of the pandemic. We had a struggle, even though we are in US, and still we had a lot of problems. So we saw a lot of our customers in origin countries have a lot more problems. So we thought we will use this time to bring the education. We call it empowering chocopreneurs, and all the industry leaders, and they were so nice to donate their knowledge and time to help the entire chocolate family. We don't differentiate between Cocoa Town customer or not. Anyone is welcome. And also now we are publishing all these videos in the YouTube, so people can go and watch anytime. And then we just want to, today, Dennis is going to talk about marketing your business through storytelling and, her project. So I will, before turning on, I just want to say, Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. So may all the beings everywhere in the universe be happy and free, and may the thoughts, words, and actions of my own life contribute in some way to that happiness and freedom for all. Thank you. And I hand over it to Teresa.
All right, thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. I'm tasked with a little bit of housekeeping, so I just want to let you know that session is being recorded and you'll receive a link later so that you can view the presentation. The other thing I'd like to say is there's a chat feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and if you have a question, feel free to put it in the chat. We will do a question and answer session with Denise at the end of the presentation. I'm very excited and looking forward to hearing the presentation. First, I'd like to just really quick so that we can get to know Denise, ask you a question. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. So, I always start with a question like this, which is, tell us a little bit about where your cocoa or chocolate journey started.
My cocoa or chocolates journey actually started in Holland when I was studying, and I was sitting in my room, and I saw my LinkedIn. Well, I have to say I was always very interested in specialty coffee, and I didn't really know much about chocolate. I didn't really know how it's processed, what like all the magic is behind it that makes it such a wonderful product. So yeah, I was in my room in Holland, and on my LinkedIn, it showed a webinar about sustainability in the cocoa and chocolate sector. And I thought to myself, like, oh, that's really interesting. I mean, there must be a lot of similarities as well to the coffee sector because it's grown in similar regions. Farmers oftentimes have similar issues as well. And I joined that day for the webinar. And that's basically how my journey started, because I got aware of a company trading organic cocoa beans in Trinidad and Tobago. And I reached out to them. And yeah, one thing came to the other, and I went there, and I guess I will in general speak more in my presentation about it. So yeah, that's how my journey started.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Just for, I'm curious, give me a timeline on that. Was that in the last, like, when did that happen?
That happened in 2021, so it's not even so long ago.
Wow,
Maybe
wonderful. Wow.
sometime
So
in
you've
the,
been able to accomplish a lot in a short time.
yes, I would say so. I really
Yeah,
dove in the cocoa.
wonderful.
Yes,
Okay, I'm excited. So I'm going to turn the presentation over to you, and we'll see you on the other side.
yes, great. Okay, can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, so thank you everyone. Thank you Cocoa Town for having the possibility of being here today and sharing about my project, my research, but also about the short film, Trinitario Cocoa. And it's of course also really nice that there's so many participants here of you that are interested in learning more about it and seeing what we've been busy with over the past month. To give you a little insight, my name is Denise. I'm originally from Germany, and I've studied for the past years in the Netherlands, where I first did a degree in international business and then later in sustainable entrepreneurship. And while I was doing my thesis about digital storytelling to empower communities within the context of sustainable entrepreneurship, it was exactly that time when I got aware of this webinar that I shared with you about. So I reached out to an organization and I asked them if they wouldn't be interested in collaborating and maybe having me over for field research so that I could really take what I've learned in theory during my studies, like the final research project, and put it into practice in the cocoa sector in Trinidad and Tobago. So that's eventually how I got to Trinidad and how I'm working here now as a storytelling consultant for the Inter-American Development Bank to work for a cluster of cocoa farmers and cocoa processors. And besides doing that, also another project emerged with it, which is the short film. So I'm proudly sharing that I'm co-directing this with Oliver Milne. And it's a short film for the OTC, the Organic Trinitario Chocolate, Cocoa and Chocolate Education Foundation. So, right, oops. My research, I quickly wanted to give you a little, well, in general, within this presentation, I would like to share with you a little bit something about my research, something about digital storytelling that hopefully you can also apply for your business, whatever size it might have or wherever location it may be. I hope you can just learn something about it. And then I will share a little bit something about my project and the film as well. So this is basically the model that resulted out of my research. I did a qualitative study, so it meant that I interviewed a lot of sustainable entrepreneurs in order to find out what digital storytelling meant for them and how they applied it within their enterprise. And basically, I found out two things: that most of these entrepreneurs, they either used it as a communication strategy to drive their marketing, or they used it, and that was rather the minority, they used it as an empowering tool, especially if they were working with minorities at origin. So they really tried to give them a voice so that people could share their story and reach out to policymakers or whatsoever that would just empower them or connect to other people in communities. So that would lead to sustainable entrepreneurship, and that ultimately to sustainable development. So maybe just keep these two elements in mind, like the communication strategy and the empowerment, because I will get back to that. But before that, I wanted to give you a little bit an insight what sustainable entrepreneurship actually is. Because really often I've been asked this question as well. And basically entrepreneurship always entails that it's a process that seeks opportunities, or it seeks to discover, define, and exploit opportunities, as you can see in this definition. And now tying in the sustainable aspect, it means basically that you try to generate value. You try to generate value that is long-term and that is social, and that helps to create networks, knowledge sharing networks, so communities could be empowered and help themselves. And yeah, basically it has these 3 pillars. So sustainability consists out of a pillar that represents the economy, one that represents society, and one that represents environment. So in contrast now to conventional entrepreneurship, in sustainable entrepreneurship, you try to really combine all these 3 pillars at the same time. So none of these pillars is more important than the other. You try to find this spot in the middle that is the sustainable value creation, because of course you need to get economic returns in order to sustain yourself, in order to be alive. If your business doesn't have any economic aspect, it's probably very difficult that it exists in the long term, which is again a very important aspect of sustainability as well. And of course, nothing can be sustained in the long term if we don't take care of our society and our environment. So it's really the goal to combine these 3 pillars or elements. And I hope that gave you now a little bit of an insight. So what did I find out in my research what digital storytelling is? It's basically, it's a tool or a process that tries to combine a variety of digital multimedia tools. That could be audio, it could be audio visual, it could be just visual through photography. So that's very individual, and it really aims to shed light on topics, which could be either a story about yourself, it could be about a specific theme that is happening within you, that might be historical or historical events, of course. And it's something that is very dynamic, cross-disciplinary, and multi-leveled. And that is very interesting. And it's similar to sustainable entrepreneurship as well. So it basically means that actually there's not one way to do it. There's not one formula on how you can best apply it, because it's so context dependent of what your business is doing, which context are you in, who's your community, what are really the issues at origin, and what are maybe the resources and capabilities at hand that you can use in order to solve these issues. And with that, I just want to leave a little note that whatever you do, it's always very important to consider your context and to not just follow a formula and hoping that you can create sustainable value through that. So, right, going back to the theory, the research theory that I showed you before, there were these 2 elements, right? One is empowerment and the other one is the marketing aspect. So I wanted to shed a little bit highlight into this marketing aspect, because of course they're intertwined, and both basically is maybe needed, and both is also created at the same time. So maybe you can even think about your enterprise, if you have an enterprise, and what you could get out of storytelling. And brand narratives, they basically, as it says here, they help you to communicate what are your specific values. How can you connect with your specific target customers to match their expectations, and also to generate sales that eventually empower your business, but also empower the communities that are involved in order to create chocolates or, yes, I'm just building up now on the premise that you're in a cocoa business. Right, so what are components of this brand narrative? In order to shape this brand narrative, it's really important that you're aware of your value proposition. So this basically gives you more information about what is needed in order to solve your problem and what is actually your problem. What value are you providing? Are you providing a product, a service? It's really, really helpful in order to get a more clearly refined idea about what you're doing. And and how you can communicate yourself well to customers. It's very important that you are aware of your mission. What does your brand stand for? What is it that you want to achieve? What are the values? What are the pillars that will support your brand? What do you want to achieve in a long run? What is the impact that you're striving for? And of course, and the brand story and messaging. So yeah, why do you exist? What inspires you? But also, how do you convey that message to your target customers? So I just have here a little excerpt, and I don't know, I do see now my face or three faces on the side. I don't know if you see them because it means that you don't see the whole screen. But this is basically a little exercise. And if you think that defining a value proposition for your enterprise is something that might be important to you, I encourage you to maybe snap a little screenshot here or a little photograph or something. And basically doing this exercise for yourself can be very, very valuable. And just a few days ago, I had a training with farmers, small scale farmers in Trinidad of the cluster as well. You might hear right now a phone in the background, excuse me for that. And we did together this exercise, and it has been so valuable to do this because although oftentimes farmers, their whole life for many, many years in a business, and they really know what they do and they're really passionately doing so, you sometimes get into such a natural flow of not really thinking what you do, but just doing because it's natural to do, that it's difficult for them to communicate themselves to customers or to just make like an elevator pitch to bring it in one sentence of what they're doing, what is special about what they do, and who is actually a target customer, because it's so important knowing about your target customers, because based on these, you basically create a messaging, which channels to reach out for. It's just good information. So yeah, I encourage you to do so. And if you have any questions about that, you can also come back after the presentation, or you can even reach out to me privately. You see my contact details at the bottom, and we can maybe go over it together. Yes. But yeah, basically, so how are brand narratives shared? There's so many different channels in this very digital and always being online world that we're living in. So of course, you can share the narratives through social media. You can share them via blog on your website, or an email newsletter. But then of course, you can also use the packaging of your product, your chocolate bars or your cocoa nips or whatever it may be, to already put the story of your enterprise on this. It can be so powerful because it helps consumers choosing for a product and just conveying this added value that you're giving through your chocolate bar, for instance. And then of course, through photography is a great way. But yeah, what are really the digital storytelling elements or the components that help you to create such a narrative? Of course, it's very important to have in mind the story arc. And that basically means that there is a beginning, a middle, and an end, just in most of the good stories. But oftentimes, if we think about how do we convey messages from our brand, we kind of forget this aspect. And it's just so helpful for yourself, but also for the ones that you want to communicate to better understand what you're dealing with. Because the beginning is basically an opener that tries to grab the attention of your audience. Through the body, you have the possibility to further explain yourself, but also do some sequencing. Or if you do a story, like a visual story with photographs, you can use a visual variety that just shows the extent of the of your narrative. And of course, there's a closer, and closers are really often used, or they're very helpful to implement some call to actions that, for instance, motivate consumers to go on your website and purchase something, or they could motivate the audience to donate to a specific organization, or they could just motivate the audience to rethink, to be inspired, and just questioning consumption patterns and choosing maybe single estate chocolates over bulk chocolates. Or yes, so the call to action is very powerful, and if you don't apply it within your narrative, you might miss a wonderful opportunity to convey your message. But then, of course, there are also more elements. Within your story, you can convey emotions. I guess that's quite self-explaining. And even if you want to convey emotions, I encourage you to not only focus on a sad story. Give the sad story space because it deserves the space, but always focus on solutions. So even if you're offering a sad story, try to highlight what the solution in place might be. Is it now, for instance, that you want to prepare a narrative about plucked pot of cocoa beans, that now the changing climate patterns, they're really affecting your cocoa crops, and so many of them are having different diseases and you're not able to harvest as many. It's very valuable that you share this because you should educate your audience, but maybe don't necessarily leave it at this rather sad story, but try to emphasize what you can maybe do or what systems are in place to help it. Because oftentimes, we prefer stories that at the end do maybe give us a little bit of a nice feeling like there's hope in place. And then, of course, your digital story, it can convey a message or idea, which is either a clear statement or just something that is very intentional. Show what intention you have with your message, and don't just let it be something that is unnecessary or that might not have any importance to anyone. Especially when it comes to photographs, you can capture moments, maybe the very decisive moment, that one moment that shows it all, like a moment that speaks for the whole situation, does barely need explanation. You can also document about, but yeah, I want to remember you. This is about visual, like about a photograph, for instance. You can use the element of gestures. But this is not only about a movement of a certain object, but it might be a movement that distinguishes this one object from all the others, to just show that there is a change happening. There's something very different about it. And it can be something very contextual of a space, but also a scene of something happening. And of course, always try to keep in mind that there should be a relationship to your audience. Is it either the relationship that we're all human? Is it the relationship that there is environmental degradation happening on this world that we all live in? Is it a relationship of us all knowing chocolate and loving chocolate? Just try to keep this element of relationship in mind, because the more we can relate to something, the more important it is to us eventually. Now I need to take a sip. Yes. So something that has, or like elements or a tool that has been very helpful to me in my process here of being a storytelling consultant for different farmers and processors is the 4 Ps. It's basically something that helped me to stay a little bit focused, because there's so many stories, there's so much happening. It starts with cocoa, but then it might go to a whole diversity, and suddenly you're speaking about citrus fruits. So to say, I mean, this is now not even so far-fetched, but you can imagine that once you get to know a space and once you get to know farmers, that there's just so much happening. So I try to focus on the 4 Ps, which is the place, the product, the process, and the people. And based on each of these categories, I try to collect specific content, just telling about who are the farmers behind the process. Are there any employees, and what is their story? I was mainly focused on photographic documentaries and taking a portrait of them, or combining with the process, showing them in a field. What is it that they're doing? Do they do bean to bar chocolates? Do they mainly cultivate cocoa, but then basically deliver their dried cocoa beans or even the wet cocoa beans to other processing facilities? Or is it maybe a chocolatier that is mainly receiving dried cocoa beans and is doing very delicious Trinitario cocoa? So there's so much that can be told about, but focusing on these 4 P's really helped me to make sure I'm not forgetting something, but also to make sure I'm staying as good as possible informed, and don't lose how do you say, well, I guess you know what I mean. Anyways, having this in mind, thinking back of the target customer, it's, as I said before, it's really important knowing who your customer is, because based on that, you can choose the channels that you will represent your narratives, that they have as much impact as possible. So if you feel like your target customers, they're rather reach online, you might place more emphasis on social media. But if you know that you don't do much on social media and you basically visit fairs where you maybe sell your cocoa soaps or your cocoa liquors or chocolates, then it might be worthwhile putting more attention into designing some flyers or posters or a really appealing package that conveys the narrative, because again, it's so powerful to be visually attracted to something and have just a really authentic narrative. Right. So looking ahead, I want to just give you a few little tips of what your next steps could be, what you could consider if you're one of these enterprises that would like to focus a little bit more on storytelling. I encourage you to really keep in mind or focus on what value you offer. What is special about your business? How do you differentiate? What impact are you making? And then also, are you solution focused? Do you detect a problem in your context and you really try to make an impact? And then, of course, is your narrative relevant? Is there intention behind? And one thing to maybe represent whether it's relevant or not, or it's something that I did within my project, was to find a measurement tool that is seen reliable or that is seen credible within like a broader context. So for instance, in my project, I focused on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And I just selected a few, for instance, no poverty, and really try to focus on what my project does in order to maybe help mitigate this issue. So that is something that is really powerful and that can also be integrated into your narrative. And then, of course, as I mentioned a few times, focus on your target audience, who is your audience, and make it as specific as possible, and brainstorm about how you can connect to them best, and maybe connect to them and find out what their needs are, because maybe like this, you can find a middle ground. And of course, what is so important is always keeping the ethics in mind. Keeping in mind if there's any power dynamics at play, keeping in mind if there's any minorities, or keeping in mind whether, I don't know, if you, for instance, doing an interview with people, whether you offer them a code of conduct, or whether you offer them the possibility to see the product before you're publishing it. These are all little things that are so important in order to ensure that the narrative is actually empowering and not disempowering. So yeah, coming to what I've been doing. So over the past months, I actually reached Trinidad in January this year. And I worked as the storytelling consultant for the IDB. I spent a lot of time with the farmers and processors here. They took me so many times in the fields, showed me what they did. I did photographic documentaries and interviews, and just really deeply connected to them, got to know their context. They shared with me about the challenges that they have, but also the solutions that they realize, but maybe it just needs a little bit like community work in order to get it done. So as you see, it was again also very much solution focused. And it was just a really powerful and great experience. And based on that, I did some articles on different themes that have also been published on the IDB website. It has been published on the World Fair Trade Organization Europe. And it was basically always around themes like challenges or the history of Trinitario cocoa, which is very, very fascinating. What is special about Trinitario cocoa, or maybe something that is more contextual, like what is happening in the village of Braço Seco, which is a really beautiful cocoa growing region, to just give some contextual ideas of what's happening. And basically, I found out together with the farmers, so basically the farmers told me that there is two main issues happening at the moment. So yeah, Trinitario cocoa is something very, very special, but climate change has really had a very negative impact, or maybe not necessarily climate change, but just changing climate patterns. So for instance, we just recently, we had floods that were like washing out a lot of crops of farmers, but at the same time, they resulted into a lot of diseases of cocoa pods. What has looked before is there was like a lot of cocoa pods on the trees growing, has after this floodings and these heavy rains just been like black pods on the trees, or maybe even I've been told that parrots and squirrels came and they even ate the good ones that were still left. So yeah, it has a really big impact on the future of cocoa farming and the future of Trinitario cocoa. But then at the same time, there's also this social issue, because you might know it from your own country or your own context. And I think it's a phenomenon that is happening all around the world. Is cocoa farmers are like averagely rather old, and the younger generations, they're not interested in taking over the business. So what is basically left is an abandoned estate. And I mean, who's going to make sure that we have wonderful chocolates in the future if there's nobody cultivating it and nobody taking care of it? So yeah, there's so much happening in the space. So outside of this IDB project, we had the idea that it would be really, really wonderful creating a film, creating an audiovisual experience in order for us to reach more people. Because what is the best way nowadays to reach a broad audience? It's basically audiovisual entertainment. So yeah, the idea of Trinitario on the Edge was born, and it's a short film that is co-directed by Oliver Milne, a really, really wonderful local cinematographer, and myself. So yes, based on all these stories and the work that I did for the cluster, we have been co-directing this film. And the purpose of the film is, I mean, I already spoke about it now before, but is basically to create awareness about Trinitario chocolate and the cocoa industry in Trinidad and Tobago on a local level, because so many people here are not really aware of what is happening, but also on an international level. And maybe I can tell you a little bit something about this. Where I'm from Germany, as I said before, and most of my friends or family, neither myself, like, has ever heard of Trinitario cocoa before. So it's historically, it's such a wonderful cocoa. It makes such wonderful chocolate, but yet so little people know about it, which is really a pity, and we should change something about that. And of course, we really aim to emphasizing the challenges and opportunities in this local cocoa sector. As I said before, is related to climate change, but also to this social gap or this generational gap of younger people not being interested in overtaking the business, because oftentimes farming is associated with poverty, but it doesn't necessarily need to be like that. And there's plenty of examples that it is not like that. So we basically do follow the story, within our short documentary. We follow the story of 4 farmers that I have selected out of this OTC, of this Organic Trinitario Cocoa Cluster. And they share their very unique stories about their lives, their challenges, and their possibilities. And I think what the really special aspect is of this project is that it's at the end, it's not a product that is being told by myself or by somebody external. It's really told by the farmers themselves, for farmers, for young people, for old people, for chocolate lovers. It's really their stories, and I think that makes it very, very special. And ultimately, focusing more on this, on the opportunities in the sector, being more solution focused, the short film provides insight into the importance of changing to more regenerative agricultural practices that really help build up the soil and having a healthy biodiversity around your place. It focuses as well on creating more value-added products. So that means of not only cultivating cocoa and then selling your wet cocoa beans to someone, or not only doing one product, but to basically do, for instance, bean to bars. Bean to bar means that, or maybe even tree to bar, having your own trees, you harvest, you process the cocoa beans, and then you create your own chocolates, because this is basically how you can create most value of your product. So we want to focus on that. And the beautiful importance, I want to say, I don't know if it's a good word for it, but the beautiful solution of family businesses, because there's a few really nice family business existing here, and they integrate this knowledge or wisdom from older generations, but there's now also younger generations that come in and that help, and they learn, and they bring in more the innovative aspect. And it really seems to be a solution that mitigates this generational gap that is happening. So that's basically the purpose of the documentary. And the objectives are to, this on the side, this photo is, for instance, one of the farmers that is part of the short film, Martin. And yeah, it's just a really nice shot and a really nice memory of him walking through his lush bush in Tobago after harvesting cocoa pods and having them all in a sack. And then he carries them away to put them on a pile and track them together with the family. Anyways, the objectives are to inspire young Trinidadians to protect the rich cultural heritage of cocoa farming. And it is really a rich heritage, because most people here, they're in some way or another, they're connected to cocoa. It's either that maybe their grandparents have had a cocoa estate or cocoa trees on their land, or that they are connected to somebody that worked on a cocoa estate, or maybe even that they're just some memories from that childhood, like drinking warm cocoa tea, and that just let them reminisce in the past. And it's just really beautiful to see. Oops, I have to go, sorry. And then, of course, we want to motivate cocoa farmers to join the OTC Education Foundation, because through this foundation, farmers that are at the moment maybe unaware of the systems in place to help, or unaware of practices that might contribute to regenerate your land, they would have the possibility in this foundation to get the knowledge, to get workshops, and to just be part of a community, because knowledge sharing networks are just so important to drive change and to help. We, of course, want to increase consumers' awareness in chocolate consuming countries, but also locally, about Trinitario cocoa, what is so special about it. because it really is. It's such a wonderful, flavorful chocolate with like fruity floral notes. I really love it. And that should eventually also help to stimulate export volumes because, of course, through increased sales, farmers will eventually be able to make a living from being cocoa farmers or cocoa processors or chocolatiers. So who are the people that are part of the short film? Well, the first protagonist is Richard. Richard owns the San Antonio estate in Grand Couva. Grand Couva is a really, really beautiful region that has been long known for cocoa cultivation already back in the days where there have been the colonies in Trinidad. And it's just so interesting because there have been so many cocoa estates, really big ones, and maybe now there are 3 left. The rest is all abandoned. And yeah, Richard has been in the cocoa business for a really long time, and his whole family has been. And he's basically this one protagonist that gives an insight into how it is if you're older, if you have the cocoa farm, if you have this love and passion for cocoa, but there's basically none really out of your family interested in overtaking the business. So this is maybe rather a little bit a melancholic side, but not necessarily, because it's really inspiring and knowledgeable as well, what he shares in his interviews. Then the second protagonist is basically a family Matthew. It's Martin, Chapman, and Ocean. And Martin was also the one that you just saw in the previous photo walking with this cocoa harvest. They are the owners of the Tamana Mountain Chocolates in Talparo. They actually just very recently came into the cocoa business. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's approximately 5 years ago. And it's just so beautiful to see what they have been capable of in such a beautiful, in such a short time. It's an example of a family business where even the young generation is involved. Ocean is becoming now really active in learning about post-harvesting processes like the perfect fermentation of beans. Jackie's the one that creates really delicious bean to bar chocolates. Martin is basically the one that is really in the field that harvests and willows cocoa beans, for instance. And yeah, it's really inspiring to see from them this family perspective. And then we have Javed, the third protagonist. Javed is a really young farmer who, together with his mom, Stephanie, they do the Omar beans organic chocolates. He's also a tree-to-bar chocolate producer. And they have their estates in Brazo Seco. It's a really beautiful region. I don't know who the audience knows a little bit something about Trinidad, who's maybe even from here, or yeah, it's a really, really nice region that is a little bit in the heights of Trinidad, and it's rather a little bit chillier, and there's also a bit more rain, but it's really beautiful. Anyways, Javed is a really nice example of doing tree to bar chocolates of really high quality. Their chocolates have been, or the cocoa beans have been awarded, similarly to the Matthews, the second protagonist, but also applying a lot of regenerative practices or permaculture. So yeah, finding out on how to best live in harmony with the land around you. How can you make use of it in a balance that you also give back? And it's just really peaceful and calm and inspirational, like following his journey and being part of it, and having been there, having had these interviews and walked with him through his estate was just a really nice experience. And then our last protagonist is Aaron. Aaron is also a rather young farmer, and he owns the Kwai estate, which he just also very recently acquired in Moruga, in the deep south of Trinidad. So we basically have incorporated these 4 regions of Trinidad. And what is really nice about his story is that he doesn't really have a background in farming. I mean, there's always been the love and passion for plants, but he just really recently got into farming, and he has now this huge estate and tries to build it up in a very permacultural way. And it's actually an old cocoa estate, so there's also the link. And yeah, it's really inspirational from him, or it's really inspirational with him, a story to witness what has been possible in a short span of time, and what is so beautiful about permaculture. What are the challenges? What are the possibilities? And yeah, it's a really nice story arc that combines these 4 unique stories and just individually shares about sometimes individual, sometimes common challenges experienced and what they just do in order to mitigate it. Yes. So we, the film crew, who has been working on this, on the left side is Oliver Milner. He was basically the cameraman and is also co-directing with me. Then you see a photo of myself, Dylan, the camera assistant, and Jelani, our ambience sound recorder. And together, I mean, I have to say that we shot this film with an analog camera, so that is something quite special, a 16mm analog camera, because yeah, Oliver and myself were just analog photography lovers and also film lovers. So this seemed like a wonderful opportunity to integrate this aspect of analog photographs, because documenting the story of Trinitario cocoa is something very special. And we just thought it also receives a very special way of capturing it. But of course, doing such a short film with an analog camera was not always, or with an analog way, was not always very easy, because it also brings about a lot of difficulties, like walking through the bush, or having to change the film rolls, or having to take care that there's no light entering, or yeah, and you just never know what's the final result until you develop rolls being returned. So yeah, this is basically a little background footage, or background photographs, also analog ones, that we captured during our journey. Yeah, I will show you a video that will speak a little bit more about it. So maybe I would just go to this. For this, I quickly have to switch my screen, because I want to show you a little trailer and a Meet the Maker video to give you a better insight of this product, of this film, sorry. Maybe give me a quick thumbs up if you can see a black screen now. Okay, great. And
Hey, nice to have you.
can you hear this as well? Maybe another thumbs up. Great, thank you.
Here. I'm Denise, and I spent the past months in Trinidad and Tobago to explore the story behind a very special crop, Trinitario cacao. A cacao that was born in Trinidad and Tobago and is characterized by very special flavor notes and qualities. I discovered so much beauty and magic, but also that the future of Trinitario cocoa may be endangered. The short film Trinitario aims to raise awareness about this precious variety, educate about its challenges and opportunities, and most importantly, acknowledge the wonderful farmers behind the process, inspiring people that live for the love and passion of cocoa and regenerative agriculture. I direct this film together with Oliver and a wonderful local film crew. We toured together across the island for a week, through sunshine and tropical rainstorms, climbed up and down the hill through lush rainforest with an immense amount of gear, all to shoot this film with a 60mm analog camera, something that we believe gives the film a very special feel. It's been a magnificent journey, and we got lots of wonderful materials. But now we're asking for your support, because yeah, it really takes a village to raise a short film, and we consider you our village. Your support helps us to complete this film in the quality that Trinitario cocoa and its farmers deserve it. We want to hire a talented local musician who composes magical music, a sound mixer who creates harmony for the senses, do marketing campaigns, and register at a number of film festivals, so the message reaches as many people as possible. And of course, ensure that our crew receives a fair share for their efforts too. So be part of our village and support this incredibly fulfilling journey. We really believe in the storyline of Trinitario and know how important its message is to foster the change we need to see, to create awareness and to stimulate a movement that inspires farmers, young and old, locally and globally, to change to more sustainable farming methods. Your support will help us to complete the film. Thank you so much. Stick around and see a little teaser of the film.
Thank you so much. Let me quickly go back to the other screen. Okay, I hope you all see the presentation now again. So yeah, this has been our teaser so far. And we have been very, very fortunate that we had the support of a company that helped us to basically get this film starting and to just be where we are now. But our goals are to go really far with this movie because, as I said before, we really want to reach a big audience. So we aim to apply to a number of different international niche, but also really renowned film festivals. And even having the possibility to go with this film into schools in Trinidad, but also regionally the Caribbean or ideally the whole world. But yeah, where this might just be a very relevant topic. So in order to improve the quality and to just, it's basically the same.
Hey, nice to have you.
Sorry. Okay, so in order to get this far, we're still looking for the support of people, organizations that just want to contribute and be part of this movement. And yeah, there's different ways on how you can support us. If you think this is really something that aligns with your values and you think this is a great project that you want to help being finalized and being shared with the world. In total, we needed a budget of approximately 41,000 US dollars. And this far we are at 25. So there's 16,000 left that we still need to raise. And very fortunately, I created a crowdfunding. So if this is something that you would like to contribute to, I encourage you to either follow the link or scan the QR code, and you will be guided to a GoFundMe platform. Within this GoFundMe platform, you have the possibility to donate an amount that is comfortable to you. And you can also, just a little side note, because I get this question quite often, you can choose to not pay any additional commission on this platform if you go into the second phase of the the donation. Basically, you just choose 0 commission, but that is something that is up to you. I just want to share that this is possible because for some people it wasn't quite clear. And yeah, if you're an organization, you also have the possibility through GoFundMe to receive a donation certificate. So this is one way on how you could support us. And it would be really amazing if you helped us to reach our goal, no matter how much your contribution is, every single bit is much appreciated. And if you're an organization or individual that aims to sponsor us, and we have 3 different packages that are based on 3 cocoa regions. One is the Moruga one, which starts from $1,000 US, the Brazo Seco one, which starts from $2,000 to $2,500 and the Gran Cuba one, which is $5,000 and more. There's a variety of different benefits that you get from these sponsorships. You will, of course, with all of them, you will be invited to our film opening in Trinidad and Tobago whenever we finish the film, which we aim to do in the beginning of next year. And we will apply for film festivals. So if you're not really aware of the procedures, usually as in the time span that you apply to film festivals, you're not allowed to publicly show the film. But after this, we would organize a film opening, and you would, of course, be part of this, which I think is really great. And you will, of course, also get credits in the film with your identification or your logo as being a sponsor of Trinitario. And then within the second package, you, of course, also receive brand presence in PR and marketing campaigns. And for your organization, you would receive tailored marketing communications. And then within the last one, it basically offers all the perks from the previous ones. And you would also be an entitled executive co-producer, which is also acknowledged within the film. So I think it's really wonderful perks, and it would be really nice if that is something that interested you. And if that should be the case, please note my contact details down there, message me, and I will very happily share more information with you. So yeah, this is basically the ending of my presentation. It's really nice that you've joined. I hope you thought it was interesting. I hope you learned something when it comes to storytelling for your enterprise, but I also hope that you have been inspired by the presentation about Trinitario, the short film. And yeah, it would be wonderful if you wanted to support us. Very much appreciated. So thank you so much.